told her I'd call her in the afternoon.
Okay. So we're going to start on 167, top of the page. And I'm not going to go through all the different cases. A lot of different cases competing for our attention, but there's two right now that we're comparing. So one is the Mishnah. The Mishnah is where the husband doesn't find signs of virginity on the marriage night, wedding night. So wants to end the marriage and doesn't want to pay her anything. The ketubah would demand that he pay her something, and she is claiming that she was raped between the time that they were engaged and the wedding night, and that's why she's not a virgin. And so she would like to collect her entire ketubah, since none of it, that's not her fault. And he's just saying, no, that's not how it happened. And then, so that's one case. The second case is, which it's interesting how they compare the two. And you, at first you don't see the similarities, then you start to see the similarities. So the one is where one guy just says, you owe me $100. And the guy says, I'm not sure about that. So you have and that's a case of a certain claim versus an uncertain claim. So in the certain claim versus the uncertain claim, Rav Nachman, keep in mind, so Rav Nachman says that you don't owe anything, even if it's just an uncertain claim, because there's no proof. Without proof, you don't take $100 out of your pocket, even if you're not sure about it and the other guy is sure. The other way of looking at the case is that when you have a case of certain versus uncertain, you always rule in favor of certain. But Rav Nachman doesn't go along with that. Rav Nachman says the deeper principle here is that there's no proof. So, and some of the rabbis here are comparing the two cases in the sense that the woman is bringing a certain claim. I know that I was raped. And the man is just saying, I don't know what happened. And so that's an uncertain claim. So Rabban Gamliel, in our Mishnah, rules with the woman. Says you believe the woman. He doesn't explain why. Just says you rule with the woman. Rav Nachman, in the second case, rules with, in other words, when he's ruling with the woman, he's saying, the man's got to pay her. He's got to take money out of his pocket and pay her. In the second case, Rav Nachman says you don't have to pay. We could say because there's no proof, but you don't. Yeah, but you don't. But you don't have to pay. So you could say that Rav Nachman and Rabban Gamliel are disagreeing with each other because Rabban Gamliel is supporting the certain claim, even though there's no proof, and Rav Nachman is saying, well, just because it's a certain claim doesn't necessarily mean that we follow the law. We still need proof. So you could make that claim that that's what's going on, right? And that's what's separating the two of them. Okay, that's where we left off. So on 167, top of the page. I can't believe I explained that in 3 minutes.
Yeah.
So, it really took me 3 minutes. It took me 5 hours to figure it out. Not really, but it takes a while to kind of get these competing claims. But 167. But just because I explained it in 3 minutes doesn't mean you understood it. But it means that means that I was confident enough to explain it. Page 167. Amar Lav Rav Nachman. So Rav Nachman could say, Ana da'amre afilu ke Rabban Gamliel. I mean, I actually maybe even agree with Rabban Gamliel. You know, that my system of thinking follows Rabban Gamliel, and maybe we've been looking at this case, both these cases, wrongly all along. I'm going to get into this maybe later. Rav Nachman, first I want to say Rav Nachman's not actually talking here. When it says Amar Lach Rav Nachman, it's Rav Nachman could say to you. This is later, and then Ana de Amre. I say it's
another way of looking at it.
Right, and then the editor of the Talmud is giving a hypothetical situation where it's possible that Rav Nachman and Rabban Gamliel agree. Now, if you're Rav Nachman, you still have you have a motivation to agree with Rabban Gamliel, because Rabban Gamliel is one of the greats. And it takes a lot of chutzpah to challenge Rabban Gamliel, and it's not clear that Rav Nachman would want to do that. Also, Rabban Gamliel comes before Rav Nachman, so before you disagree with one of the earlier rabbis, you'd have to have very good evidence. So there is a motive, and also the rabbis in general would prefer that there be fewer disagreements than non-disagreements, because fewer disagreements than disagreements, because it just complicates things when there's all these disagreements. Now, there is a kind of tension. The Talmud certainly encourages disagreement. At the same time, the Talmud is happier when everybody gets along, and when everybody kind of feels the same way. So that's the tension. Both are there in the Talmud. The need to support disagreement, but also kind of the underlying sense that maybe we could all just disagree. Maybe we could all just agree. All right. Anyway, Ana damar fil Rabbi Nachlia. Adkan lo kamar Rabbi Gamliel. So in the case of the woman who was claiming that she was raped, where Rabbi Gamliel says she's believed, hatam, in that case, ella deika migo. It's because I mentioned this. He could make, because you could make a migo argument. So the migo argument, if you recall, is that you believe someone if they make a claim, and they could have made a claim more advantageous to themselves. So they chose a claim that was less advantageous to themselves on the surface, on the face of it, yet they chose not to advance that claim. They advanced the claim that was less advantageous, so therefore you know they're not lying. Because if they were going to lie, they would have picked a more advantageous lie. Okay? So for the woman, it's interesting here. So for the woman, the more advantageous claim would have been, it happened in NF. Remember, she's not pregnant. The only thing that happened here is she doesn't have her signs of virginity. That can come in other ways. Like, they actually talk about it, horseback riding. I guess that was pretty common in the Talmud, or riding on a donkey. But, you have an athletic accident, so something happens, and so there's no signs of virginity. I'm not going to go into the biology, because everybody here took health, right, in 7th grade, so you know what I'm talking about. I think everybody, you remember that far back. But it was 7th grade for me.
Some of the generations may not have taken health in 7th grade.
Okay, well, I am not the health teacher. The health teacher was always the gym teacher, and it's definitely not me. But I'm still confident that you know what I'm talking about, the biology. Horseback riding, tennis, things like that. So there's going to be things where you don't have signs of virginity on the wedding night. So because she could have claimed that, instead she claimed that she was raped. Now, even then, there's a psychological sensitivity. They're saying that nobody wants to admit to that. It's humiliating. Nobody wants to bring that claim. The fact that she brought that claim when she could have easily just said, no, it was horseback riding, means that she's not lying, means that she's telling the truth. That's the migo argument. Now migo, it shows up occasionally in the Talmud, not just in this case. It's very controversial. And you can see why, because you're sort of reading the mind of the person. It's a kind of lie detector test. But I also said before, once the plaintiffs in a case know the law, once they've heard of migo, then the whole thing is shot, because they're just going to take advantage of that. They'll pick a less advantageous claim so that the court will agree. But so that hasn't happened yet. Now it's just rabbis talking. So if we go to the other case, where one guy says you owe me 100, and the other guy says I owe you nothing. No, the other guy says I'm not sure. Well, the guy that's advancing the 100, there's no migo there. In fact, that's a very advantageous claim. There's no less advantageous. There's no more advantageous claim that he could have made. Right, exactly. All right, so I'm going to aval hacha. Yeah.
Couldn't you say you owe me 200 then?
But why? I mean, just the fact that you owe me something. You can't take it that far. I guess that's what I would say. So you could say $1 million. Okay, well, he could have said it. Right. So he could have said 100, and it would have been more advantageous, but would have been more believable. But that's, by the way, I think what you're pointing to is kind of the slippery slope of migo, because as a judge, you can always come up with a less advantageous claim that he potentially could have made. I mean, it would have been less advantageous for this guy to say, you owe me $1 million, because nobody would believe him. But 100, maybe you believe. But I have to say, if you're going to accept migo, it works in the case of the woman, because what they're saying is that the claim that I was raped is something that people don't want to admit to, even today, even more so there. Just say that, even you can imagine her parents telling her, look, just say it was horseback riding. You'll get your ketubah. We won't get messed up in a terrible. Right, people won't look at you funny. I mean, it's awful to say that, and I don't agree with the social sensibility, but you can imagine it. Whereas the just you owe me $100, and where I could have said $1 million. It's not as obvious there that you could use migo. Yeah.
Just to argue along these lines, so maybe she did have an affair, and she's worried she can be pregnant, and that's why she says she was raped. So it might be the most advantageous thing for her.
It could be, right. But also you're showing what a slippery slope the migo is too. Yeah, right. Because the rape could be the more advantageous, ultimately could be the more advantageous claim, and the less advantageous. I mean, if she said, no, I had an affair, that wouldn't be a very advantageous claim. I mean, by the way, if she said I had an affair, she wouldn't get paid. Right. So it wouldn't even be a claim. Like, she wouldn't make that claim. Right. Because it wouldn't be a claim. Well, the case would be over. Right. Because she wouldn't get her ketubah. Right. Okay. All right. Avalhacha my migo ika. So the case with the 0 and 100, you can't really make the migo. And so in other words, the case about the 100 could come down to two possibilities. One is that in a case of certainty versus uncertainty, you rule in favor of certainty. That's one principle. Another principle is that in order to take money out of somebody's pocket, you always need proof. Those are competing principles. Okay? Rav Nachman believes in the latter. Right? He believes if you're going to take money out of somebody's pocket, you need proof. For him, the migo is proof enough. The fact that she had a more advantageous claim and instead chose the less advantageous claim, that's proof enough for him. So he would even agree with Rabban Gamliel. Okay, let's turn the page. Okay, inami, or another possibility. Remember that Rabban Gamliel never tells us his reasoning. So it leaves us, so we're kind of guessing about. So one possibility is this migo. That may be one, that you believe her because no one wants to admit that they were raped. Okay. But another possibility, inami ad kan. So for here, lo kamar Rabban Gamliel hatam. So in our case, Rabban Gamliel says, ela damrinan, is like we said. You know that he's quoting the following principle, ukma achazaka. So it's a lovely two-word principle in Aramaic, which is that you leave things according to their presumption. So in other words, to change the natural presumption, you need proof. Otherwise, you leave things in their natural presumption. So for the woman, the presumption is that women are not promiscuous. Right? That young Jewish women are not promiscuous. That's going to be our assumption. So if she says she's raped, we're going to, unless there's proof. If there's proof, we change the presumption. But you go into the case with a strong presumption that women... Innocent until proven guilty. Yeah, it's kind of innocent, yeah. But it's specifically in that case. Right. So because the guy is accusing her, in fact, of promiscuity, of having sex with somebody else before she was even engaged. You know, coming into the engagement, already having sex, and what Rabban Gamliel is saying, that would be unusual, right? That we have a presumption of virginity for our young women, and it doesn't mean that it doesn't happen. It happens, but you need to bring proof that it happened. So, in other words, and that's why she's believed. She's believed because that's the presumption, and being raped, of course, doesn't damage the presumption. She makes that claim. Okay. Aval hacha. And again, so in our case, in the case of the guy owing the other person says he owes $100, my chazaka it lehai. There's no presumption that you owe me $100 or I owe you $100. That's something that's our so we don't believe that guy because we don't go into the court with the presumption that this guy owes me $100. Whereas you go into the court with the presumption that young Jewish women in general are not promiscuous. And you hold to that presumption. That's a presumption that anchors society. You hold to that presumption unless you have proof to the contrary. But in the case of the guy owing the other person 100, there's no presumption you come into court with. You just, so therefore, you need proof to pay him. Okay. How are we doing?
Yeah. Okay. It goes along with the idea all men are innocent until proven guilty.
It's similar, although although they don't phrase it that way. Right. There's just say that things stay. We don't make a change in the status quo unless we have evidence to the contrary. That's kind of and it's not just the status quo; it's our assumptions about things. Unless there's proof to the contrary. Right, yeah. And I mean, if you want to look at other examples, I think the commentary has a few other examples. This is just one other example. This chazaka. I've talked about a chazaka before. Chazaka means an assumption, a presumption, and it came up, we talked about it before about you have a chazaka in that seat, the seat that you're sitting in. I'm looking right at you, because you always sit there. You haven't bought it, right? You haven't put a plaque there. You haven't claimed it. But we know you sit there all the time. So now there's a chazaka on that seat, a presumption. So for somebody else to sit in that seat, they would actually have to bring proof that they're allowed. Yeah, because the burden, that's also chazaka. The burden of proof is on them. Because every day we come in here with the same presumption that you're going to sit there. So for somebody else to sit there, they would need a note, let's say, permission from you. Yeah, so that's an example that we leave things.
So it's available.
Monday, Tuesday, and Friday.
Yeah.
If
There you
total
go.
stranger, that would be their reason, and that's, they walked in here.
No, but they would need to bring some. Otherwise, we would kick them out of the seat.
Yes.
They would have to bring evidence
Like
We do
that they have
that.
permission to sit there.
Usually sits at that, but Don's not here, so you're.
Well, you can lose a chazak on a seat.
That's right.
After 20 years, you lose it. If you're not there for that. In Judaism, it takes a lot longer.
How long does it take you to create the
Oh, like 3 times. yeah. Things happen. Yeah. That's it. Judaism customs happen very quickly, but it takes a very long time to break them. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. I could give you lots of examples. Think of how many times in shul discussion someone will say, "Oh, we always did it that way. We always do it that way." When always actually means the last 3 times. That's all.
Yes.
And maximum. Maybe it means the last 2 times.
Yeah.
So to change, would take a huge amount of effort. Just 3 times.
What's the joke about the custom itself? Is this what you just said? The custom of arguing.
Yeah. Okay. All right. So continue. Hachinami mistaber. Okay. So hachinami mistaber means we have another teaching that supports what we just said. This is what we just said about the presumption, keeping the presumption as it is, unless there's proof to the contrary. Kidakamishanenan, as we taught. So we have proof from the following that it's just what we taught. The Rav Nachman because it's Rav Nachman, Damarki Rabban Gamliel. That Rav Nachman is actually teaching like Rabban Gamliel. So all this is which, by the way, I said before, is what we want. So everything we've said up to now supports the idea that Rav Nachman would agree with Rabban Gamliel to imkain, because if that wasn't the case, kasha hilchata kehilchata, there would be a disagreement. It seems like a tautology. There would be a disagreement between the law of Rabban Gamliel and the law of Rav Nachman. So yes, unless we can explain it, there would be a fundamental disagreement in ruling between Rav Nachman and Rabban Gamliel, and we don't want that to happen. Because Rabban Gamliel is the greater rabbi. Rav Nachman, it seems unlikely, would disagree with Rabban Gamliel. So we're left with these, I think, pretty decent excuses to say they actually don't disagree. It's just that the cases are different. And then we've given 2 reasons why the cases are different. And I'm not going to go through those again. Dekaimalan, because we have a teaching, Hilchatka ki Rav Nachman bedine. So we actually have a teaching that we always follow Rav Nachman when it comes to dine, or civil law. Okay. So, but if there's a case where Rabban Gamliel disagreed, that would really throw that whole statement off, because you couldn't imagine a time when you wouldn't assert, when Rabban Gamliel wouldn't be an authoritative character. But we also have this teaching that you always follow Rav Nachman when it comes to civil law. Now, it doesn't mean everyone agrees with Rav Nachman. There are people that don't. But people in his generation, so in his generation or later, if Rav Nachman says something and other people in his generation say something else about civil law as opposed to religious law or criminal law, right, the civil law, then Rav Nachman is always right. So therefore, we have to be able to preserve the agreement between Rav Nachman and Rabban Gamliel, and we've done that. So we've done that. Uveraha demar Rav Yehuda amar Shmuel, halacha ke Rabban Gamliel. Okay, and in the other one, in our case, which is the woman who claims she was raped. Now we're finally coming to a conclusion. Rav Yehuda said, in the name of Shmuel, the law is according to Rabban Gamliel. Okay, El alav shmamina kidmasheninan. So therefore, we must have learned what we've taught, which is that Rav Nachman and Rabban Gamliel agree. Because ultimately, the later rabbis decide, the halacha is according to Rabban Gamliel, which means that we started with this woman who claims she was raped. We end with the conclusion. It's a definitive conclusion, which doesn't always happen in the Talmud, but here it does, is that Rabban Gamliel is correct and that she's believed. Now, we have several reasons why she might be believed, because all Rabban Gamliel does is say what the law is. But ultimately we conclude with that, Shmamina. So we do conclude that Rabban Gamliel is correct, and there's no contradiction between him and Rav Nachman. In fact, what we're saying is Rav Nachman would agree.
Are there any cases subsequently that are like this, in terms of content?
Sure.
Where Nachman leading source on the civil law.
Yeah.
And he disagrees with Gamliel again in other areas.
I don't know. I can't answer that. I don't know enough. I think it would be interesting. I think that seems likely that it's possible. They probably explain it away.
Yeah.
You know, like there's like
but the goal would be similarly, and it seems to me that this whole recitation really is getting at who has authority.
Right. That's a lot to do with it. Yeah. So I guess what I'd say is that Rav Nachman in general doesn't comment on things other than civil law.
Right.
That's his expertise.
But in that category, there'll be other areas where the two of them will have.
Well, so just a quick comment, it seems almost like a silly comment, but you understand they would never disagree with each other in person because Rav Nachman lived about 200 years later.
Yeah.
Right. So and then it's unlikely that the person Rav Nachman would directly disagree with Rabban Gamliel because that would be like me disagreeing with George Washington. He just wouldn't do it. But what you could do is you could probably come up with cases where it appears that there's a disagreement. In fact, that's exactly what those rabbis did just now. And it troubled them. It troubled them enough that they wanted to resolve it.
And that's the reason I asked the question, because it seems to me that this is really an exercise in trying to achieve that understanding, that level of understanding.
Yes, I think that's definitely what's going on. Another thing that's going on is, which I like about this, is they're just kind of throwing out ideas about how you believe people with conflicting claims. Yeah. So we had several cases here where we had conflicting claims with no evidence. With no evidence to the contrary, so they come up with some interesting psychological, lie detector type stuff to figure, okay, you support this person, you support this person, and also the way they compare the cases, I think, is very interesting, ingenious almost, really, because you wouldn't think they have anything to do with each other, but they do. What they have to do with each other is that what is motivating the claim. How do we judge the different motivations of the people bringing these claims? Can we use their motivations as evidence one way or another when we don't have any documents, or we don't have any eyewitnesses? Okay, so we're going to have another one of those right now. That's the next Mishnah, 169. Oh, it is in horseback, right? And this is that 7th grade health issue again. He omeret. So this is a different claim. Okay. Hang on a second, I'm sorry. I'm trying to find it in the... Yeah, so it's on page 169. So it's a dispute between a husband and wife about the signs of virginity. Hiu merit mukat eitzani. So she says that the reason I don't have signs of virginity is because earlier in my life I was injured by wood. Like climbing a tree, something like that. So she doesn't, after the marriage bed, doesn't show signs of virginity. V'hu omer... Loki says no. Ella drusat ishat. No, you had sex with somebody else, and that's why. Yeah, and it's again one of these awful phrases to indicate you are trodden by another man. But he's not claiming rape at that point. He's claiming you had sex with somebody else, and so it's actually sort of two claims. He's not saying it happened during the period of engagement. He's saying it happened before. So it's not just that you weren't a virgin, and that's a bad thing. You should be a virgin. It's that you lied to me because you told me that you were a virgin, and that's what it says in the ketubah. So he's claiming not just an ethical, like that was a bad thing that you did. He's actually claiming fraud, right? That I entered into the marriage under fraudulent circumstances. Okay. Now, again, no evidence. There's no evidence. He doesn't have evidence of that. He doesn't have an eyewitness. She doesn't have evidence of it either. She doesn't have an eyewitness. Okay. Rabban Gamliel and Rabbi Eliezer Omrin. So Rabban Gamliel and Rabbi Eliezer say she's believed. Ne'emenet. Okay. So you could say that his reasoning is the same as before. That there's a presumption that women are not promiscuous, and there's no evidence to the contrary. So you believe her. Rabbi Yoshua, so Rabbi Yoshua says, "Lo mipiha anu chayim." So Rabbi Yoshua says, we don't live or die on her word. It's just her word. Now he's going to again go back to this idea that if we're going to take money out of the guy's pocket, for him that's the change in status quo. If we're going to take money out of the guy's pocket, we need proof. When he says that we don't live by her word, it's not claiming that she's lying, right? He's not saying that we believe her or don't believe her. It's that we need proof to take money from that guy. So we said, that's interesting. The assumption here is that the assumption in not bringing I guess what they're saying is the more common case for a woman that doesn't have the signs of virginity is that she had sex. That's the more common case. So that becomes the presumption. Until she brings proof. So she'd have to bring proof, an eyewitness, something like that, that actually saw the incident with the branch, the wood, something like that. Okay. So that's interesting. I don't know if they were basing themselves on cases, on research they did about women that don't have the signs of virginity. It generally happens because they're not a virgin, or it generally happens because of athletic accidents, or just what she's claiming here. But he's saying the presumption is that it was actually sex itself. Okay, and since that's the presumption, he needs proof in order to take money out of the guy's pocket. Okay, that's the Mishnah. We have a little more time, right? We've got about another minute or two. All right, and the Gemara asks an interesting question. Tanatayhum b'mai. What are they arguing about? What? No, it's what amount are they arguing about? All right, and I'll just review the ketubah for a second. So standard ketubah, in the event of the dissolution of that marriage, if she was a virgin, if it says in the ketubah, she was a virgin coming into the marriage, which by the way, if you're interested, what we just say is the first marriage. But then it was really the word betulta would be in the ketubah, meaning that she was a virgin. If that's the case, then he owes her, in the dissolution of the marriage, 200. Unless there's a claim of fraud and he doesn't want to pay her in anything. Okay? If she comes into the marriage as not a virgin, which for our purposes here means that she's been married before. So she's a divorcee or she's a widow. So in that case, she only gets 100. She only gets 100 because the assumption is she already got 200 from the previous marriage. So now she doesn't need as much. So she just gets 100. It's not punishing her. It's not punishing her for not being a virgin. The assumption is she's gotten the 200 from her previous marriage. Yep. Yes?
Well, in that instance, what is the claim? That she was just promiscuous?
That's what he's claiming here.
This is the claim, yeah.
Yeah, the ketubah, it's very clear. The ketubah says that she's a virgin. Because his claim is that she's not a virgin.
Even with the second marriage?
Oh, no.
The instance of
the second marriage is that you had sex with your husband, which is...
So what's the purpose of the claim? You can't claim it.
So that's the question. So yes, you might think that it's obvious that she's claiming 200, and he doesn't want to give her anything. But you're going to see now there is some possibility that he's only claiming 100, or that maybe it could be this. It could be that he's claiming 200, and she's saying, "Well, you should at least give me 100," because even according to your claim, all that means is that okay, I had sex with somebody, so I'm not a virgin. I should still get 100. So that's what they're asking. So is she asking for 200 and he's coming back with 0, or is it the possibility that she's asking for 200 and he's offering 100? He says I should only have to pay 100.
Yeah.
That's the question. Okay.
Would a ketubah for a second marriage only specifically say 100 anyhow?
Yeah, for a second marriage it would say 100.
So that's the contract.
Yeah. Okay. Well, yeah, exactly. Yeah. It's never as simple as it seems. So let's just turn the page so I can get the next two lines. 170. Rabbi Yochanan Amar. So Rabbi Yochanan says, we had Rabbi Yochanan already, but Rabbi Yochanan says, B'matayim umaneh. So he says something. It's already interesting. He's saying the disagreement is between 200 and 100. In other words, she thinks she should get 200, the full ketubah, and he thinks he should only pay her 100. He's willing to pay her something. Okay. Right, but not. I don't want to pay you the 200 because, from my point of view, you're not a virgin. She's saying, I am a virgin, so therefore you owe me the entire 200. Rabbi Elazar Amar b'maneh v'lo klum, and Rabbi Elazar is saying, no, she's actually only asking for 100, and he's saying I shouldn't pay you anything. Now, why is she asking for 100? Because she didn't inform him about the accident. She's admitting that she didn't inform him about the accident. She should have informed him about the accident, so he'd be ready for it. And therefore, okay, so I'll grant you that I should have informed you, but I didn't. But that means you still should pay me 100. And he's saying, no, the whole thing was a fraud. You should only get 100. You should get 0. Okay? And we'll finish it next week.
Can a woman say ketubah that she's not a virgin?